Hello, beautiful. My name is Debra Mazer, and I am the author of Retreat Recipes for Yoga Lovers, which is my brand new ebook. It's vegetarian, vegan, and raw recipes from around the world. And it contains over 100 recipes, and they're all gluten-free and soy-free and refined sugar-free, but still sweet and fun. I wanted to make some videos for you so you could learn a little bit about the book and about me and my story and how this book is going to impact your life. And I want you to know that my book, it's for me as an artist, because I do consider myself a visual artist as well as a food artist. It is a work of art that I'm so excited to be able to present to you, but it's also a work of transformation for you, for your life. And I want to share my story about how food transformed my life so that you might have some insight on how it can further transform yours. Now, I'm guessing if you're into yoga already, which you might be, or other types of healing or self-care practices, you probably have already undergone a life transformation of some kind, and perhaps you can relate to my story as well. But food is a unique passion of mine, and so I really want to share with you how I became into what I'm into. So why should you listen to me and watch this video? Well, I've been a raw and vegan chef for almost 16 years, and I won the Best of Raw Awards for my Hot Love Chocolate Truffles, and I've catered for people like Chris Carr and Shiva Ray, and worked with David Wolf at his yoga retreats in Hawaii. And my business, Vibrance, I used to do a raw food delivery service in Atlanta, was actually featured on a 3-page full-color feature article in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I also have another book out that's a spiritual book based in the Jewish tradition called Open-Eyed, Heart-Wide Haggadah, which has been featured on Today.com and the Huffington Post and is raved about by the actress Alicia Silverstone. So what's my story? How did I become a chef and into food? It was definitely an unexpected passion, although I will say that my mom was always a great cook. We grew up on kind of like the standard American diet, chicken most nights. We're Jewish in my family, so there were a lot of bagels for breakfast and chicken noodle soup and matzo ball soup and, bagels with smoked salmon and things like that. I never had any vegetarian friends. I didn't really know that people could be vegetarian, but I was always a little bit grossed out by meat. Specifically, if it was on the bone, it would kind of freak me out because I could see that it was from an animal and I was sensitive to that. So I made my first vegetarian friend when I was in high school, and I decided that I was going to go vegetarian. And later in college, I learned more about factory farming, which I'm not going to lecture you on. I used to be that kind of person, but I'm not anymore. But anyway, I became vegan. I decided I wanted to be vegan because I didn't want to support factory farming. And then a couple years later, I started meeting raw foodists. And I had a couple friends that were into it. One person was saying, that they would eat an avocado for breakfast on the raw food diet, and I thought, well, that's really nice, but I love food, so I could never do that. Now, cut a little bit forward, I moved to Atlanta, and I went to some different lectures and workshops where I heard stories about people healing things like cancer on the raw food diet, and their hair going from going from gray to black on raw food, and just crazy, weird, miraculous healing stories that kind of left my jaw dropped, wondering if it was really, in fact, true. So I decided to go on the raw food diet for a week and see how I felt. And what happened was really nothing short of miraculous. I had an amazing experience going completely raw for a week. So previously I had been suffering with mild depression, and I had just had actually a friend take her life, and it was a really intense time. And I was committed to my own healing. I didn't have severe depression, but it was mild. And as soon as I started to eat the raw food, it was like a dark cloud that had always been over me that I didn't know was there was lifted. And I found myself laughing for no reason and feeling very connected with nature and feeling happy for no reason, which for me was kind of bizarre because I didn't think you could really do that. I was a little bit cynical, but I was feeling really good, breaking out into spontaneous laughter. At the time, I was also getting certified in Reiki, energy healing, and I had this moment where I was laying down on the floor and I felt a voice say, "I love you," which was really, really weird for me. But I do believe it was partially the energy healing and partially the raw food diet that was just opening me up to a different spiritual realm and a different creative realm. And it was truly amazing. I grew up very follow the rules on the standard American diet. I was what I like to call a math nerd. So I would always get like over 100 on all of my math tests and AP math, and did amazing on like the math SATs. And everybody thought that I was like little Miss Goody Goody, follow the rules. And I was going straight to Harvard and going to be a doctor or a lawyer. But what happened was when I went to college, I majored in sociology and women's studies, and I quickly became a new age hippie. I started taking yoga and meditation classes in the late 90s when I was 18, 19 years old. And I traveled to India and lived at Oroville community for a month by myself in a treehouse. And I started writing papers about intentional communities in my sociology classes and learning about non-Western forms of medicine and healing. So this was really a catalyst for my growth when I was in college at Brandeis University. So I have a bachelor's degree there from Brandeis, magna cum laude. Anyway, back to the raw food. So I started meeting these people. I said, I can never do it. And then I tried it myself for a week, and it was amazing. So it kind of became this passion. I said, I feel so good. Why would I want this to change? I want to keep feeling this amazing. So I'm just going to keep eating raw food. And back then it was like the early 2000s, around 2001. And in the raw food movement at that time, there was a trend towards really going all or nothing, 100%. So I used to go to these potlucks with Jackie and Gideon Graff, like once or twice a week, and we'd all go around the circle and we'd be supporting each other to go 100% raw. And that was great. I got a lot of support. I had taken a class at the Living Foods Institute in Atlanta, and I got my first job working as a raw food chef in Atlanta at a place called Everlasting Life. And it was a Black-owned, Hebrew Israelite-owned restaurant. I was one of the only white people working there and there in general. And I had an amazing also transformation around race and just opening my eyes and experiencing being part of this Hebrew Israelite Black community in Atlanta, which was also amazing. I'm so grateful for my job there, for Melek, who hired me and was open to diversity, and it was such an incredible experience. Over the years, I worked in other Black-owned raw vegan restaurants in Atlanta, like Lovin' It Live. Actually, apparently there's still photos of me in the photo album there that a friend just showed me recently. It's really cool how we're always connected. It's so beautiful. Anyway, I started to have these experiences around diversity and multiculturalism, which I had already grown up with as a Jewish woman because I actually was a religious minority growing up, even though I always had the light skin white privilege. So I always had a sensitivity as well to race and culture and difference. Now, at the same time, I'm going 100% raw, and I did it actually for pretty solidly for a year and a half, maybe 2 years if you count the couple times I fell off the wagon, but I was so strict raw that I wouldn't even eat salad dressing on my salad unless it was fresh squeezed lemon. It couldn't come out of a bottle and that kind of thing. At the time, there was no such thing as raw chocolate. David Wolf had not brought that into the raw community yet with cacao. So I had to even give up chocolate, which was crazy, and just have carob in my raw desserts. So I did this strict raw for a while, and then I had what I like to call the egg dreams. So I was doing my raw food diet. I was living in Santa Cruz now, and I had gotten a job working at a place called the 418 Organic Cafe, where I was also a raw chef, making and perfecting my double layer cashew cream carrot cake and just having a lot of fun with my other friends who were hippies in Santa Cruz. Um, so, but I started having these egg dreams. So I'd eat my raw, I'd go to bed at night, and at night I would, in my dreams, devouring cheese omelets, which is something that I grew up eating. My dad would always make them, so it was kind of an emotional connection as well as perhaps a physical message from my body. Now, in the dream, I'd be enjoying and ravishing this cheese omelet, and then at some point I would realize, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm vegan and I'm a raw foodist, so I can't eat this. But I was having the dreams over and over. So I thought, well, at the time, maybe my body is craving more protein. Now, knowing who I am now, I think my body could have possibly even been craving a cheese omelet, but at the time, I decided to eat a couple bites of cooked beans, and the dreams went away. But that was my first step towards going from following a set guideline of that I have to be 100% raw to starting to move more towards intuitive eating based on my body's signals and messages. Now, I loved eating raw food. It made me feel amazing, but it was also, at sometimes it was a little bit isolating, and I was definitely floating. I wasn't quite as grounded as I am now. I'm still quite an air sign, but I'm a lot more grounded than I used to be on 100% raw. I was so strict, and I went one summer. I was at the Michigan Women's Music Festival, which is an amazing festival, and your ticket price actually includes really incredible homemade vegetarian food. And I gave in and ate cooked food when I was at this festival, and it was like my first time really and truly going for it, because they had like freshly made tofu from a local tofu place and these beautiful bins of like almond butter from this amazing intentional community called Eastwind that I knew about from my time living and studying intentional communities. And I just gave in, and what happened was that I had been so strict on raw food that I started to enter into what I like to call a spiritual bulimia, which I developed a little bit of an eating disorder at that time, because once I started to eat the cooked food, I would binge. I would go to Indian food buffet, and I would have all you can eat and stuff myself, and then stuff myself a little bit more. Now, I never threw up, but what I would do is, after binging on the Indian food or that kind of thing, then the next day I would say, okay, you've got to be back on raw. You know, why don't you do a juice cleanse or do the master cleanse today? And so I would yo-yo back and forth from binging on the vegan cooked food. It was always still vegan. And then cleansing and fasting for even extended periods of time. And this kind of yo-yoing actually created a real obsession with food that wasn't, looking back, very healthy, nor was it very fun to be inside my head, because I was always judging myself. Every time that I would eat cooked food, I would judge myself, especially when I ate, too much of it. And then it was just this obsessive mind thing that really was torturous inside of my own head. And I know that for people that have experienced eating disorders or other types of even addictive behaviors, I know that you know what I'm talking about. So over the years, in my 20s, I slowly started to find balance, where I realized that it wasn't a good idea for me to go on extended juice cleanses and fasts. Now, this is just me. I know some people really thrive on them and they're awesome, but because I had this history of this eating issue, it wasn't the right thing for me, because it would just only spark me having this very rigid way of thinking about food. So, what am I going to say next? So anyway, so I developed a way of having more balance. So I decided that I would start my day, with like my yerba mate, and I would have a green smoothie. And for lunch, I'd make like a giant raw salad, like with the works, avocado, and all the yummy sprouts and veggies and all this stuff. And then by dinner time, I would just let myself have whatever I wanted. I was still vegan. Um, but that could even include, I was working at a vegetarian restaurant at the time called Cafe Sunflower, and they had this amazing vegan chocolate cake that was totally full of gluten and sugar. And I got to a point where I could eat a slice of that cake and not feel guilty or bad afterwards that it wasn't raw. So just very interesting time. So I kind of found this balance for myself. Now, at the same time, I started to work at this place called the Local Farm Stand, and I became the manager there, and we would sell different produce from local farms in Atlanta, and one of the products that we sold was actually eggs, and I had been very strict vegan for about 7 years, and I realized that with these particular eggs, they were from this place called Crystal Organic Farm. I didn't actually have a moral issue with them. My whole thing about being vegan was all about the factory farming and not wanting to support that animal rights. But I realized that the eggs from this farm, I didn't really see anything wrong with it. So I actually started to not be strict vegan and to eat some of the eggs sometimes from the local farm stand, which was really amazing and liberating for me. But at the same time, I would still have these feelings of guilt a little bit when I would eat animal products. And it wasn't until I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition that, and became a certified holistic health coach, that I really gave myself permission to de-shame around food. And also, I gave up emotional eating once and for all, which was incredible and such a huge gift. I am a huge proponent of this school. If you ever feel drawn and get a chance to go, especially if you're healing an issue around food, it was incredible and life-changing for me to be in that program. So I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I stopped feeling guilty. I used to have this thing where if I didn't eat over 50% raw in a day, I would feel bad. It's like I was obsessed. And so when I did IIN, Integrative Nutrition, I would go out and buy rice and quinoa and start really cooking and experimenting with different things. And likewise, I started experimenting with even incorporating a little bit of raw organic dairy cheese every so often. And even, brace yourselves, vegans, but every once in a while I would even have a little piece of fish. This was huge for me, and I gave up labels and I started to call myself, instead of a vegetarian or vegan or raw, I called myself a Debratarian, which is Debra eats what Debra wants. And I still would eat the green smoothie, but it started to become more about intuitive eating for my body. So now my business, which I talked about, I had this raw food business. I still had hesitations and fears around incorporating cooked vegan food into my business. I thought that all the raw foodists were going to judge me, which was silly because really I was just judging myself. But I had these fears. And so also through my experience in integrative nutrition, I started to feel comfortable offering cooked food. So when I moved to LA and would vend at Ecstatic Dance LA and offering cooked food and having that really be part of my business as well was also very transformative and healing. And in 2015, I was contacted by Shiva Ray, and I catered my first retreat for her at Wishtoyo, a Chumash Native American village in Malibu, California. And that was so fun and amazing. I had awesome helpers, and we got to camp outside. And then I continued on to cater events in 2016 throughout most of the year. And when I developed my recipes for Shiva Ray, I'm a daily meditation person, so I would meditate and kind of download my ideas. And now me being someone that was very into like multiculturalism and also just a foodie who wanted to keep the food really exciting for 10 full days of catering for these yogis and yoginis and keeping them excited and not bored. So I started to really explore different cultural foods. And I created these menus for the retreats that were like Caribbean food and soul food and Ethiopian food and Persian and Mediterranean and Italian and Mexican food and all of these different cuisines. And everybody loved the food and they were all asking to purchase the recipes. But the recipes were all kind of new for me because I still have some raw food ebooks that I sell on my website and on my Etsy site, but I didn't have any of my cooked food in a book. And so it inspired me to really start putting this book together, this retreat recipes for yoga lovers, so that I could offer it to the students who were always asking for it at the retreats. So that's how it all started. And I started to record my recipes and photograph them and write it all down. And it became this book. So I'm really excited about it. And my next video that I'm going to be doing, we're going to talk a little bit more about recipes, and I'm going to teach you a few of my tricks and tips and things. I'm really excited about that. And what else do I want to say to you? I hope that my transformation story and my story about food inspires you. I know that some of you are already super into healthy food. Maybe some of you are newer to it. But food really has the power to change your life. It's incredible. It really is. Not only, did my skin start to glow and my eyes got brighter, I went off of prescription allergy medication, which I had been on my entire childhood, and I've never had allergies again to this day, even though, I'm not a raw foodist anymore. I eat cooked food too, but just so many transformations. And, the depression that I was going through, mild depression when I first got into raw food, it lifted, and I felt the sense of joy and energy. So, food really is something that goes into the very cells of our being. It's physical. It's also a great way to practice self-care. Because if you think about it, you could, let's say, go to yoga or get a massage, take a bath. There's different, say your affirmations, there's different things you could do for self-care. But with food, we have to eat anyway every single day. So it provides an opportunity for you to practice radical self-care. And especially in these times that we're in, with all this crazy political stuff going on, and we all want to be activists and do great things in the world, and we're being called to great things, and that's all wonderful. My book is intended for you to care for yourself in the midst of all of that, for you to feel like you're on a yoga retreat, for you to start glowing and to have more energy, and to be able to eat as much food as you want, but still feel amazing. And I have a little message for those weight loss people out there. So I'm a feminist and body positive, and I believe in gorgeous, full-figured goddesses, and I don't think anybody has to say that they have to lose weight. But I will say, for the people that are already convinced that they do want to lose weight, I will say that that restriction and starvation don't work, that it's really about adding in the good stuff. And that is what my whole book is about. And when you're eating the good stuff, you can really eat as much as you want, and you're still going to shed those things that you are ready to let go of. So I just want to say that. What else am I missing? I'm looking at my notes here for a minute. Spirituality, mood, laughter. I think that's pretty much it for this video. So I hope that you enjoyed this story. I'm really excited to offer you this book. I'm excited for all the beautiful, colorful photos, all of the different ideas. I'm excited to be a stand for racial and cultural diversity and unity through my book. And I'm also excited for your life to change and to inspire you and to hold your hand along your healing journey. So thank you so much for listening. I love you. If you like If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to share it with a friend. You can comment on it. I'd love to hear your feedback and what came up for you during this video. So thank you so much, and I look forward again to sharing my next one with you. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into some of the processes and theories and recipes. So thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.